So here we go. First podcast. This is a little more nerve-wracking than I ever would have thought, but we're going to do it raw, unedited. So there's going to be a lot of maybe some pauses, and I might mess it up or it might go perfectly, but it's going to be just like life's journey, raw, unfiltered, and hopefully gets better with each episode. Welcome, everyone, and thanks for joining me for my first episode of Elan Vital Journeys. And welcome my guest, Yehuda HaLevi.
Thanks for having me on the show, Phil.
Thanks for coming.
I have a few questions I want to ask you about Elan Vital, getting started with this new podcast, this new project. But first, let's get into who are you? Where do you come from? Who is Phil Owens, and what's your background?
So I grew up the third of 9 kids in a little town in Oklahoma. I was in a pretty strict religious cult. And by the time I was a teenager, I knew that there was more to life than what that had to offer. So at 18, I joined the military, went to base training in Alabama, off to Panama for Operation Just Cause, and then Hawaii after that. I became a father along the way, along that journey. That's who I am.
Yeah. And so now you're involved in the world of psychotherapy and plant medicine. What was the point that your life shifted in that direction along your journey?
Yeah. So when I first got out of the military, reintegration was pretty challenging, carrying both childhood and military trauma. So it was quite a struggle. And I met a underground psychotherapist that worked with psychedelics, and they were able to help me reframe my relationship with my trauma and to respond to my triggers in a different way.
So this was at what point in your life? How old were you roughly?
23.
So, yeah. Okay, 23. So you were pretty fresh out of the military.
Fresh out of the military. When I first got out, I went from, I was in Hawaii one day, and 5 days later, I was out processed from the Presidio in San Francisco. So.
All right. So now I want to ask you a little bit about Elan Vital. First of all, what does this name mean for those who may not know? And how did you start this part of your journey?
Yeah, it's a French term meaning life force. And it's something that I always knew that there was something inside that would drive me. It came out really quite a bit in my military experience, like when I wanted to give up or when I didn't want to continue. There was this desire to stand up and keep going and keep going. So I got curious about it, and I've ran across this term, Elan Vital, and it resonated with what I was feeling and what I experienced. So, it's that's what it is.
Yeah, I've some way that like a paradigm that I've been taught to look at the world is to ask myself what's life sustaining and what's life draining. Is Elan Vital kind of that life sustaining force?
Yeah, it's the force that drives us to rise time and time again, no matter how many times we fall, to adapt, to change, to continue forward against the odds.
And I'm sure having this understanding of this life force is something that you probably needed when you were going through this very difficult time in your life.
Yeah, it was, it's kind of like oftentimes we hear it as our why. It's kind of like finding your why. It drives you to find your why. So yeah, it was a very key piece of my journey.
And the incredible thing about human journeys is that while we have our own story, the themes of human stories tend to repeat themselves time and time again. So while you're now at this point in this clear understanding of your why, there's definitely, men and women in your position at their point in the story that they don't have that understanding right now.
Yeah, that kind of plays into the next piece of the hero's journey, which is a journey that most it's a lot of stories follow. Think of like the movie Avatar, The Matrix, or Wonder Woman. How there's a call to a journey, and it goes through 3 cycles of that. There's the departure. The I'm trying to cheat and look at the initiation and the return. Um, but yeah, it's a way of telling a story in a succinct manner where you cross from the known to the unknown, and you meet mentors and guides along the way and supernatural aids, and then you cross back into the known, and bring that elixir back to your life to share with others or your community. And that's how I ended up here along my journey. I didn't really have any mentors or guides or anybody to hold the light, shine the light through the journey. And so that's why I started Elan Vital, was to share their stories and hopefully shed some light for other people who are on this journey, and to know that they don't have to go through it alone. And there's people out there to share the journey with and to shine the light for them.
I love that. And I know that just from what I've learned about the hero's journey, this light shiner person shows up at one point or another in any person's journey, whether it's like a sage or just someone who has experience or knowledge that they can share with the hero. And they're almost at like a stuck point, and then this person appears at the right time.
Yeah, it's kind of like when you're the most stuck, then somebody appears, and it's usually, not what you might expect, I think. But it's that low point that, when the Elan Vital gets really strong, maybe, and encourages you to get curious and find that mentor, the supernatural aid.
I always think about Harry Potter, for example, when I think
Yeah.
about the hero's journey, because there's that moment where they're like, "You're a wizard, Harry." Not only does the departure stage open up a door for a journey to take place, it almost forces you to, because you can't look at the life that you were living the same way ever again.
Yeah, there's usually resistance as the first part when you're called to that journey. And oftentimes it's a resistance to the journey. And then, yeah, once you cross that threshold into the unknown, there's frequently no turning back, and you continue along the journey. And Harry Potter, he learns that um, uh, he's a very powerful wizard, and that's always been within him. It's part of who he is, um, and that's usually the storyline in the hero's journey.
So how does plant medicine in particular play into the hero's journey, and how do you see that come up on people's plant medicine journeys in particular?
Yeah, so it's can be like a supernatural aid, if you will. There's oftentimes we get stuck and we don't know why we're stuck, or um, it's reframing of a trauma that allows us to reframe it, and to react to it or respond to it in a different way. We tend to respond to those traumas versus react. We tend to react to those traumas versus respond to them. So it can help with that. It can help uh, there's a divinity piece to it oftentimes, where there's a connection with a power that's greater than we are, that is very helpful as well. There's a lot of studies out there that show that the best antidote for depression is a connection with a power greater than oneself. So the plant medicines can help us find that connection to that source, whatever that might look like.
And that higher power that shows up in so many different places in anyone's journey looking for the answers. I mean, it shows up in religion, obviously. It shows up in the hero's journey, but also organizations like AA. There's all this theme of like surrender, this moment when you can surrender to something greater than yourself. That's the defining moment. That's the changing moment in someone's journey.
Yeah. So it's surrendering to that higher power and just realizing that we're all connected, and that there's a guide, there's a force that's guiding and looking out for us and protecting us and always there and available. Usually in modern society, our monkey brains are going so fast that we lose that connection. We don't slow down to connect to that.
So as someone, like you said, like you've experienced a great deal of PTSD and trauma, I feel like if someone has a lot of trauma, they might have a harder time with this process of surrender. That trust in the universe, that everything is for good and that there is this vital force. I feel like the trauma itself can block that process from happening, because we have this one view of the world that is totally not that. With plant medicine or without, what helps someone break through that strong barrier that's trying so hard to protect them?
Well, it varies from person to person, but recognizing that that blockage is our ego. It's the default mode network, and it's what's kept us alive for our entire lives. And it's very ingrained there. So set and setting are really important. So your mindset going into it and the setting in which you're in, to feel safe and comfortable and to let go. And then, choosing the right plant medicine is pretty important in that piece of it as well. And to have a good guide or mentor that is guiding you through the process is super important as well. But yeah, letting go can be a real challenge. And there's ways to help with that, which might be, using different medicines at different phases. It helps a lot as well.
Yeah, that's interesting to me. An analogy I've heard for psychedelics in particular is that for some people it's life-changing. For others who may not want to do it, it's maybe not their path. It's the difference between taking the stairs or taking the elevator. And sometimes we need to take the elevator. We have so much like protector pieces that to go right to the top floor can help shatter some of those blocks.
Yeah. It's important to be mindful of meeting somebody where they're at in the journey. And plant medicines aren't for everybody. There's altered states, which psychedelics are a type of altered state. Yoga, meditation, breath work are all non-medicine altered states. So yeah, and connection with divinity can come from a religious practice. So there's a lot of ways to get to the top. But sometimes taking the stairs is the right approach, and sometimes taking a really fast elevator could be the right approach. I was going to say that something about taking the elevator, busting through the ceiling. Like there are some medicines that, like, for example, 5-MeO-DMT is a medicine that is like the super express elevators, that bust through the ceiling for a lot of people.
Yeah, I've heard that.
Yeah. It's also, it's called the God molecule. Some people say that if you believe in God or a higher source, you'll meet them. And if you don't, you will afterwards. I think that's a little over exaggerated. It doesn't work that way for everybody. And it's not a one and done. Like in society, we tend to have like, take a pill and we're all better. And this is definitely a journey. It's not, we do it once and everything's better. So it's definitely a journey. And that's part of the importance of having a good mentor, is to help you pick, the right, or somebody with knowledge to help, like, figure out what's next, like which path might be the right next step, whether it's, another medicine or some more integration, or maybe some breath work, or improving a meditation practice. Yeah.
That's the beautiful thing about an experience like this, is that once you open that door, you know how to get there through just natural means like meditation and yoga. That pathway is so much more strong, and you may not need as much of the plant medicine because you've established that new connection.
Yeah, I find that typically, I often say that a plant medicine journey is like many years of traditional talk therapy condensed into several hours. And
could be scary.
Yeah, it could be really scary. And it can be very magnificent as well.
True.
But then you got integration. And, in the beginning, it takes a little more effort to stay on the path. And oftentimes we need boosted back. We'll fall off of the path. Somebody, a neurologist once described it to me as like, if you think of our default mode network, or our brains, as these neural pathways are really well worn. They're like well-worn ski path. And, we want to create a new neural pathway. So plant medicines are like a fresh layer of snow, and then you get to create new pathways through that fresh snow.
I like that.
And then, sometimes as you're skiing those new pathways, you fall into the old one, and then you need a boost back off of the old path and onto the new path. And the more well-worn that new path gets, the easier it is to stay on it. So as we're creating those new neural pathways, we need a little extra boost more than we do once they're well-worn and the old ones kind of fall away.
Well, all I can say is thank God for neuroplasticity, because without it, we'd feel stuck. And with it, we're always learning, and there's always always a more evolved version of ourselves to become, because the potential for change is, as long as we're alive, we have it.
Yeah. it's a magical, beautiful thing, both neuroplasticity and the neurogenesis that occur in all that. So yeah.
Yeah. And so that kind of brings us into the end of the hero's journey, actually, the return, which in your world is the integration aspect.
Yeah. So the return and the integration is, you go and you go on this journey and you collect all this information and data, and now how you going to integrate it into your everyday life. And oftentimes that's the trickier part, is how to integrate it into life, and then to share it, which is, that's my passion. That's why I'm here, is to help people um, integrate the journey into their everyday life, and to learn to stay in that new pathway as much as possible.
Awesome. So as we conclude, what is your final message for someone who may be inspired to go on a journey like this, to say yes to the departure of their own hero's journey? And what do the next steps look like?
Yeah, so listen to your Elan Vital. Listen to that inner knowing, and when the time is right, you'll know the time is right. It's safe. It's powerful, and choosing the right mentor, coach, guide is important. And then setting, you want to go into it with the right mindset and in the right setting. And that was a two-part question. What was the second question?
Just also what the next steps look like.
Yeah, the next steps are reach out to me at elanvitalmentoring.com, or at elanvitalmentoring@gmail.com, and have a meeting and talk about what's going on. Thank you for coming on the show, Yehuda. It's been great having this conversation. I appreciate your time.
Thank you for having me, Phil, and I'm excited to see what comes of this journey.
Thank you. Thanks for joining me for this first step of the journey. If something you heard today resonated, inspired, or stirred something in you, share this episode with someone you care about. And if you're ready to go deeper into your healing or transformation, visit elanvitalmentoring.com to learn more or connect with me directly. Until next time, stay present, stay grounded, and trust the force within you.